Hey, everybody. This is Chris
and Cathy.
We wanted to take a minute to thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate every listener and are grateful for this platform.
Please help us share our vision by subscribing to our show through your favorite streaming app. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Petability Podcast.
Check out our ever-growing list of affiliates and sponsors. Simply go to the show notes for information and links.
And be sure to use our promo code PETPOD22, that's PETPOD 22, on checkout to receive your discount from our affiliates. And now, here's a word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Alon Landa, CEO of MedcoVet, and I'm a proud sponsor of Petability. We decided to partner with Chris and Cathy because, like them, we want to empower all pet owners who are trying to do the most for their pets. At MedcoVet, we specialize in advanced home laser therapy for pets. Laser therapy is a safe and effective treatment for common conditions like arthritis and wounds, and it relieves pain for most conditions caused by inflammation. With MedcoVet, pet owners can perform this treatment at home while receiving support from experienced clinicians. If you think your pet would benefit from healing at home, visit medcovet.com, and one of our clinical experts will work with you to determine if home laser therapy is the right fit for you and your pet. Tell them Petability sent you.
It's amazing. Horses are so intuitive. If you walk into their pasture, their heartbeat will sync to yours.
Welcome to Petability. I'm your host, Cathy Simons, certified veterinary technician, certified canine rehabilitation practitioner, and certified hospice and palliative care technician for pets.
And I'm your host, Chris Cranston, licensed physical therapist and small animal physical rehabilitationist.
Our podcast provides interviews and information to help your pets live their best lives.
Hey, Cathy.
Good afternoon, Chris. What's going on over there?
Oh, well, I know I've told you, but I wanted to share with our listeners that my little Julep has been ill. She went in for her annual exam and we got, everything tested and looked at and so forth. And she only had one vaccine, but she seemed to have a little bit of a reaction from it. And so I gave her one dose of an NSAID called carprofen or Rimadyl. And we don't know, it was kind of a delayed onset, but she started having some GI symptoms. And so we've had many sleepless nights, a lot of cleaning up. And finally, I took her to urgent care. But I just wanted to share with our listeners out there that I had a great experience at urgent care. Many of you may not have used this type of service. It's relatively new. In the old days, it's like you got an appointment with your veterinarian, or if it was after hours, you went to emergency and usually, had to pay an arm and a leg and you're waiting and so forth. This urgent care model is in the vet world was really cool. Online, I could make an appointment for same day. So you didn't have to wait. They were really good, very attentive. And this is for the types of things that aren't life threatening, but they need to be seen urgently, thus the name urgent care. So I was worried that Julep may be a little dehydrated. I was doing my best to keep her fluid intake up and keep her hydrated. They said I did a good job, but we just couldn't break the cycle. And she was not eating well. And, even though I had her on a bland diet and was trying to do things to entice her. And so it was time to go in, and they worked their magic, and she got some sub-Q fluids and other things to help with nausea and B12 to make her more peppy and things to stop her diarrhea. And now she's really turned the corner. It's only been 2 days and she's pretty much acting like her old self.
There are a lot of urgent cares that are popping up around Massachusetts. And at first I was like, how is this going to fit into the veterinary model, right? From a veterinary technician perspective, it takes all the cases that need urgent care, but aren't, I guess I'll say dying, to the emergency room where you might have to wait 3, 4, 5 hours because we have hit by cars and maybe have dogs that have, ingested some poison or something like that. They're really taking the pressure off of the emergency rooms, and it's making a great impact on the community. Mm-hmm. They can just go to urgent care for things like vomiting and diarrhea, which can turn serious because you can get dehydrated. So I really think that these urgent cares are becoming more popular, and you're going to see them popping up in more places.
Yes. And something that I learned is that a lot of dental issues are addressed at urgent care.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dental
Yep.
stuff could be really painful. It can be
Mm-hmm.
really painful. So,
Yeah.
and I think that it's great that we have these urgent cares.
One thing that I was surprised by, I expected that I would get prescribed something called metronidazole or Flagyl. When we talked to Tanya Cooksey about the gut biome, she was saying that those types of medicines can really throw off that biome in the sense that it kills all the bacteria, even the good bacteria. I was shocked that even in urgent care, he did not. He refused to prescribe something
Right.
like that. He said, we don't
Right.
do that anymore.
Right.
So it was prebiotics, probiotics, fiber, etc. All the things that we learned on that episode. So tune in if you're interested in that. It was fascinating to me. We're learning more, we're evolving, and he said, once the biome is off from something like metronidazole, it may never be restored back to normal. So
Right.
yeah, so they're
Yeah.
taking a good hard long look and not prescribing it unless absolutely
Yeah.
necessary.
Yeah, great episode with Tanya Cooksey. The audience should go back and listen to that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, should we pivot to the topic at hand today?
Yes, please.
All right. Well, I'm excited, especially today, because we have a guest that is near and dear to my heart. Her name is Jerri Miller. I have known Jerri since 1993 because we worked together at the University of Colorado in Boulder doing physical therapy for people of all things. Can you imagine?
Ugh, I can't.
So Jerri was already employed there when I got this exciting opportunity, and it was a great fit. And I moved from Colorado to Massachusetts in 2002. And Jerri is one of only a handful of people that I have remained in touch with from my life in Colorado. It's very exciting. And Jerri and I have somewhat followed similar paths. She is a lifelong learner. I love to think of myself as a lifelong learner. And she may discuss this more, but after she retired from her job as a physical therapist at CU Boulder, she got certified in canine rehabilitation. So she has the credential of a CCRT from the Canine Rehab Institute. It's analogous to our certifications, Cathy, which is a CCRP. And Jerri also has her doctorate in physical therapy and then went on to become a equine therapeutic massage therapist. And let's just throw an MBA in there as well. So she comes to us well credentialed. And I thought when I was conversing with her recently, I'm like, why don't we ask Jerri to be on the show to talk about her experience in retirement working with a horse rescue? And to my delight, she agreed. So today's show is going to spotlight equine rescue and volunteerism. I'm sure Jerri will have some heartwarming rescue stories to share and discuss what goes into horse care and even how you as a listener can help.
Do you remember? I wish I had looked this up ahead of time. We did a show about Gestalt therapy with horses, and there's just this. For humans, we've just had this very long history with horses. There's also some spirituality to the horse. There's something about the horse that is very, I guess the only thing I can say is how it connects with the humans or how humans connect with horses. It's unlike anything I've quite experienced. And, that's not to say we don't have those experiences with cats or dogs or birds. Just the horse is just a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And I'm interested to hear what Jerri has to say about that connection and why they're so special. And thank goodness for horses, because we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be where we are as a society without horses.
I agree. They're so majestic. And I think that, maybe to the average person who hasn't experienced a relationship with a horse, that they may not be privy to, some of the things, well, probably any of the things that we may talk about today. So I think it's fascinating. And yes, you mentioned the episode that we did with Kelly Dukarski about Gestalt, which is a type of therapy for people that the horses facilitate. That was, again, fascinating to me because I admit that I don't know a lot about our equine friends. So happy to have a guest that can speak to horses once again. So let's introduce my friend, former colleague, Jerri Miller.
Welcome, Jerri.
Hey there. It's so great to be here. You guys are amazing. I don't think I need to talk very much. You guys got it all. I was going to use the word majestic because aren't they?
Yes.
They are. And there's something that's so calming to me about just being at the barn itself, the smell of the hay and the noise of the hooves hitting the pavement, the noises, the whinnying of the horses. Before our interview yesterday, I just watched some videos about this woman who was explaining horse behavior and what you were seeing. And to me, I didn't see anything, right? But it was so complex. It was fascinating to see what was going on this whole other level that I was just not able to pick up on.
It's amazing. Horses are so intuitive. If you walk into their pasture, their heartbeat will sync to yours. So you don't want to go in there feeling anxious, afraid, or scared. Kind of want to go in as a calming sort of, I got this, and I want this horse to be with me. And I think also there's so many more women. I mean, this is just anecdotally, but so many more women that volunteer at the rescue where I volunteer, and the staff, primarily women. I think that's also something pretty incredible.
So, Jerri, can you expound a little bit about your background and what drew you to volunteer with horses?
So my grandpa got us ponies when we were little, my cousins and I. And the four girls, we then progressed to horses. So we grew up throwing just a bridle on and hopping on the bareback and riding around the farm. The cousins had to do all the caretaking. I just got to show up and ride. So that was fun. And then when I decided to retire from CU, which was a great job, I had read something about when you retire and you're looking for opportunities, think about what you enjoyed when you were young and before life, kind of before marriage, kids, jobs, and all that. And it was horses for me. So it was an obvious thing to kind of look at the rescue. And that was back in 2018. And again, a really good fit.
Yeah. So you did some introspection and that's what resonated with you.
Yeah. The Humane Society would have been good too, but I would have ended up with so many dogs at the house. It would have been a problem. Horses, a little bit harder to adopt.
So you actually live in the city of Boulder, so it would be hard to bring home numerous horses to your backyard.
Even one, yes.
even one, somebody would notice, right?
Yes, they would.
Yeah, sneak them in.
So you've been volunteering for this particular organization since 2018, is that correct?
Yeah, Colorado Horse Rescue. So I started in 2018. They had a really good orientation. So we attended like a group of, 10, 12. And then you give times that will work. So regular shifts. And they're anywhere from usually 3-hour shifts once a week, typically. And you just commit to, I think it was 3 months at the time. They've really expanded the volunteer program there also. So they have a lot more classes. So you take the orientation, you take a safety class. Then if you want to do halter and grooming, you take another class. So they really upgraded the volunteer experience.
That's fantastic because typically, well, first, I'm sure that they are thrilled to have your commitment for 7 years now. I mean, that's almost unheard of in volunteerism. And the fact that they are invested in their volunteers to keep things exciting and interesting. My experience has typically been cleaning and that sort of thing, which is very, very important. I remember when I was volunteering at a greyhound rescue, I was such a good carpet cutter that every time I came in and on my weekly shift, I cutted remnants of carpet to put in their kennels because we wanted to cover the cement floors with a soft surface and so forth. So that was what I was relegated to. But you're really working closely with the horses, I think. Can you describe some of the roles that you've held over the years?
Yes, I feel like I've got a major promotion there. I was able to start with the regular shift work, which is mucking, which I don't know, there's a Zen thing about mucking. I kind of like that. I like throwing hay from the hay truck. That was kind of fun. And you're working with a team of anywhere from 4 to 5 other people. So you, again, commit to a regular shift. So that starts what you first commit to. And then after, I'm not sure how long, X number of months, then you can take the next class to halter and groom. And I don't think the staff realized how much volunteers wanted to do that. Like we wanted to catch a horse and groom them. So that has been the next step for me. And then I was able to take a class in holding the horses for the farrier. which is really interesting because the horses, they don't like smoke. So that happens quite a bit with the farrier work. And they're not particularly fond of having nails pounded into their hooves. So that has improved my horse holding skills.
So I don't
Yeah.
understand. Again, I'm very naive when it comes to horses. So smoke, what's that about?
Oh, they fit a shoe by using heat. So they get it hot to bend it to fit the hoof. And so so when they press that shoe onto their hoof, it smokes up quite a bit. And of course, horses just have a natural fear of fire, as anyone does. But then they want to bolt. So my job is to keep the farrier safe, and the horse for that matter.
Yeah.
Most horses will stand during the nailing, but some of them don't like a vibration probably.
Yeah. Why do horses have to wear shoes?
Oh, most of the time, and again, this kind of goes back to the whole rescue mission. We get horses from dude ranches where the horse is kind of slowing down and can't handle the workload that a dude ranch really requires. So we get them from dude ranches in the area. And so sometimes they come in lame. So they need corrective shoe wear to assist with any sort of inflammatory conditions that goes on in the hoof. Usually it's to correct a hoof problem. And sometimes, again, it could be knees or other joints, but usually it's the hoof itself and the foot itself is what is the problem. So it's a corrective shoeing.
Like an orthotic.
It is like an orthotic, yes. It helps with the conformation. And we usually at the rescue, we'll see anywhere from 5 to 7 that get what they call half sets. So just the front. The horses, just like dogs, bear 60% of their weight on the front rather than the hind. So that's the joints that tend to have more trouble.
I had no idea.
Let me ask you this, Jerri. How do the horses in the wild, do they just wear them down naturally?
We'll be right back.
Hey, dog lovers, is your furry friend limping or struggling to keep up like they used to? It might be osteoarthritis, or OA, a common source of pain and mobility issues in dogs that's driven by inflammation in their joints. Inflammation is the silent enemy, not only causing pain, but also accelerating the progression of OA. Synovitin OA is a groundbreaking one-time injection into the arthritic joint that targets the very cells causing the pain and inflammation. By eliminating these harmful cells, Synovitin OA breaks the cycle of inflammation, offering up to 1 full year of relief right where it's needed most. Don't let your dog suffer from the pain of arthritis. Visit activedognow.com to learn more about Synovitin OA and give your dog the gift of long-lasting, pain-free movement again.
Studied in canine elbow, Synovitin OA is given by authorized veterinarians. Temporary discomfort and treated joints may occur. Talk to a treating veterinarian near you for more information, including what to expect following treatment, and visit www.activedognow.com.
Yeah, if they get injured, maybe it is just survival, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, because we also have what's called barefoot trimmers, or they just come out to trim the hooves rather than the shoe wear. There's a lot of that we do to all of our horses. So that's a great question.
And you talked a little bit about this being part of the mission of the Colorado Horse Rescue. Can you just give us a brief overview of the rescue and the organization? How many horses do you have? What else are you doing?
Colorado Horse Rescue was started by 2 women, I think back in '86, but moved to our current location, which is in Longmont, Boulder County still, in 2001. It's, I don't know if license is the right word, but certified to be able to keep up to 60 horses. And we almost always have that many.
Wow.
We have 15 staff members and again, about 200 volunteers. Amazing thing that happens on this rescue is Jose, who lives and his family live on site. So there's always someone there. So it's an amazing rescue. But besides the dude ranches, we get some from animal control, which come in so skinny and emaciated. It's heartbreaking. And we get private owners that the horse will pull up lame and they don't have the money to be able to take care of it. And so we take care of them. And then also we have some horses that we get at auction or just from owners that just need to be able to have a good end of life experience. So we have a vet that's amazing with this. And again, the staff are all very caring people. It's just a great organization.
Jerri, how do you bring your special skills as a physical therapist for humans to the equine arena?
Well, I took the equine massage class, and I took that during COVID. Because what else are you going to do during COVID? I quit my regular job as the canine therapist because it just seemed like it was going to be tricky getting back into the clinic. But I took that class. The first thing I learned was that horses are very, very sensitive. So I went in there like I was going to massage a 200-pound male. That horses do not tolerate that depth. So, the saying is they can feel a fly on their back. They're very sensitive. And they are a prey animals. So they're going to be alert to any sort of action that feels threatening to them. So I think my overall mannerisms are kind of slow and kind of quiet. So with that horses, that worked out really well.
So Jerri, you were talking about their sensitivity and yes, I mean, we've all seen that fly that lands on the horse and the quivering that takes place to shed that fly, right, from their skin. I think for those of us that are familiar, that is the cutaneous trunci reflex. So they must have a very acute reflex there. Humans do not have that, but dogs do. And I think horses do.
Must be for life preservation, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, right. And, when you have critters, landing on you, most of the time, they're biting, it hurts, in the case of flies, but also so many things can potentially carry diseases. So it would be life preserving in the sense of, trying to shed them off, Yeah.
Learning their body language is what they teach us in that first kind of safety class about watching their ears and watching their tail switches and the herd dynamics also just fascinating about horses. We are introducing horses to different pastures at the rescue, constantly, really. And that's another thing with the rescue is we never know their background. So certainly when we get them from auction, we never know what they've been through. So there's a lot of observation as to what this horse is going to need, how they're going to do in a pasture. Can we even catch them sometimes? It's really a very interesting process.
Jerri, is there, I don't know what the word for this, is there a top horse or the leader of the herd horse that all the other horses respect and get their cues from?
I think every pasture kind of has a leader.
Yeah.
And in the mares, it's even tougher because the mares do like to lead. They're in charge. So when you get a bunch of mares, and that's how we divide most of our pastures up, or we have geldings and a couple, and then we have mares and their own. And then one pasture is kind of a mixture. They're usually a little bit on the older side. So we kind of do divvy them up according to some gender and some personality. But even with working with the horses, and when I'm holding, a 1,200-pound thoroughbred for the farrier, and that horse is not having a good time, so important to kind of keep my breath going. That if I'm holding my breath, the horse is going to be in tune to, she's a little bit nervous. So they can pick up on our anxiety, or I mentioned the heart rate, but even just the breath is so important.
Can you tell me a little bit about the body language that you were just mentioning? Like, I know ears pinned back is I'm angry, but what are the other subtleties about that?
Well, when I was working with Micah as my heart horse, he will have, when I'm working him in a circle, so I'm lunging him or I'm round penning him, which is just terms for using my body language without what we call carrot sticks, or they would look like a whip to people. I use my body language to get them to move. So one ear towards me, one ear forward means he's listening to me and he's paying attention to me. The horses that are, ears pinned back, right, that's a red flag. Twitching, kind of they're trying to figure out what's going to happen next. Forward means they're with you, if you're looking right at them. Their vision is also interesting. They can't see very well straight in front of them. They have to have an angle of, I believe it's 30 to 40 degrees off the center is where their vision kind of starts. So when you're approaching, that's the other thing we learn, you got to be careful and use your voice just so that they know where you are.
I was going to ask you about that because I know when I volunteered for Best Friends in Kanab, Utah, I think they talked about the difference between eyes forward and eyes to the side. Eyes forward is typically a predator, and eyes to the side is a prey animal. And knowing that horses are prey animals, I was going to ask you, like, is it really important to, kind of approach them from the side so they know you're coming and so forth, and you don't have that startle effect. You're not scaring them.
Definitely. We approach from the side. We don't walk directly towards them. I lots of times, depending on the horse, do a side step towards them and approach them kind of at the shoulder. So they're a little bit sensitive about the neck because I think that's, the whole mountain lion attack. And then their hind end, they're very anxious about having anything going on back there. So you approach at the shoulder. So that's another thing that we learn with our safety classes.
What would cause them to kick? Is that just like a common protective response?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Really interested to hear a little bit more about Jerri's heart horse.
Oh, Micah.
Yeah.
I don't know why Micah doesn't have a home. He came to the rescue maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and we could not catch him. And I say we, but the trainers actually could not catch him for the longest time. And we didn't have much of a backstory on him. He's a quarter horse. We thought he was young, but the vet was able to examine him. He was more, like about 18 or so. Step by step, we got him haltered, and step by step, we got him to lead with us. He's still anxious some, but we do a lot of, with horses like him, we do a lot of what's called liberty or at liberty, where you can remove halters and you're in a round pen. You're not in a pasture. You're in a small enclosure. And you try to lead them again with your body language and any sort of assistive devices like the carrot sticks I mentioned. You get them to do circles. You get them to back up. They can even teach them to lie down and rear up. And so Micah doesn't do all that, but he follows me in a circle and backs up and is tuned in to me really well. So that's just come from probably 3 years of working with him once or twice a week, really. It's pretty cool.
So he's your heart horse. Do you hold a special place in Micah's heart? Does he respond to you better than other volunteers or personnel at the rescue?
Well, I'd like to think that, but I do know that he'll go up to anyone as long as they have grain. So there's that. So that's very dog-like, right?
That sounds like my dog.
Well, and I wanted to ask you about that because you shared a blog that was written featuring you and your relationship with Micah. And I remember in that blog, you said that he was very food motivated. So are horses typically food motivated, or is it individual?
I think mostly they are. I think when you're working with someone like Micah, even early on, he would take a treat. But when horses are super afraid, they're not even going to eat. And I guess dogs are like that too, right? Yeah.
It's a test for their anxiety level for sure. Yeah.
So the trainers use positive reinforcement. So, and also pressure and release, which is you apply pressure by walking towards them and just as far as trying to catch a horse out in the pasture. And then if they look at you, you stop because that's a reward because it's a release of pressure. So we use both, if that makes sense, pressure release as a training tool. And then we use positive reinforcement, which can be scratchy and it can be, we usually associate a word with it. Like we say good and we say it in the same kind of inflection each time. And then we give a small treat. And I think it just helps motivate them. And Micah did really well with that. And he doesn't bite. Some people are concerned that will lead to them biting and nibbling, but you train them to only give it to them when they are standing and not reaching in, not trying to get into your space, but rather they are keeping their head straight and being well behaved.
And then you bring your hand up to them. Are the treats in your hand?
Yep. So I will take the treat in my hand and I'll move it laterally so that they can eat it away from me. So they're not right in my space where I feed them. I make sure his head is either straight or looking away. That's when I give him the food. It doesn't take them long to catch on to that. That's for sure. But Micah is an exception only in that he's been at the rescue for, this long. Like many of our horses get adopted out quicker because he is, he's smart, he's curious, he's treat motivated, and he has come a long ways. He was adopted at one point, and this is part of that companion connection program, where he was adopted to be a companion to another pasture horse, another horse that didn't have a companion. So he was adopted. It was a good fit, but then that horse died, and then the family felt like, oh, do we adopt another one? So they returned Micah. So then he's been at the rescue for a solid, a couple years after that. And I don't know why, it's bittersweet to think that he might be adopted. I would miss him, but he kind of does need a regular family. He probably needs more than I can give him.
I know in this blog that we're going to include this in our show notes about you and Micah, but you said that he is a non-riding horse. So can you describe what that means? And are most of the horses that you have at the rescue non-riding horses?
No, I would not say most.
Okay.
When we get a horse, they go into quarantine because and you're going to ask me more about Coggins. So there's a Coggins test that has to be done before they can be commingled with other horses. I think Coggins is a viral disease. There's no treatment for it. It's very contagious. So they get tested for that. So they're in their own enclosure. Unless they've come in with other horses, then they all stay. So then after the vet does that, the vet checks their teeth to kind of age them. And by then we know whether their halter broke. And then if all that is clear, there's no obvious lameness or any other problems, then the trainers take a look at them and see if they can get on them and if they're safe to ride. And then the trainers take them from there. If the horse either has a lameness or, in Micah's case, it was more that he was so, we use the term reactive in dogs, which can be really aggressive. And Micah wasn't aggressive in that sense at all, but very afraid, very anxious, moved away from you quickly. So the trainers, I think, felt at the time that it would take a long time to get this horse ridden safely and that he would have a really good future as a companion. So the program is called, at our rescue, the Companion Connection. And some of them are, the horses are lame or just have enough degenerative joint problems that they can't be ridden. And so these horses then are matched up with a volunteer who gets to work with them at their will, which is, again, some independence and freedom at the rescue that I think all of us really like. And then we try to get that horse to be adopted out to a home that needs another horse for their horse, if that makes sense.
They're social then, and they need a companion to thrive?
Yeah, they're herd, they are herd animals. So I think I'm right with this, that the rescue doesn't even adopt out a horse if they're going to be the only one.
That feeling of the herd to feel safe
and protected.
Right?
Yes.
They get protected by it. I'm thinking about some of the horses that you were saying that come into rescue that maybe they came from the dude ranch or maybe the racing industry, abandonment, neglect, or maybe just lifetime of care. And I suspect that not only do you have to go through maybe a typical physical rehabilitation process, Jerri, which you would be involved in, but there must be some type of emotional rehab for these horses as well. How do we address their emotional well-being when they're in the rescue?
Yeah, I think the trainers, certainly for the horses that are going to be ridden, they are assigned a group of horses. So you're not like you're getting a different trainer every day. So I think the trainer then can be consistent, and horses need consistency. So I think that's the first thing they do. They also try not to move them around too much in the different pastures so that they can get that herd instinct going. They certainly, take good care of them physically with grain buckets and the feed and good hay and things like that. So their physical needs, as you say, are taken care of probably like they haven't had for a while. I mean, the dude ranches are taking care of the horses, but some of the other ones that we get, especially from auction, we don't know, but it seems, they haven't. There's some food resource guarding, I guess. So those are things we have to be careful of too.
It's interesting because Cathy had asked you earlier, how you were able to transfer some skills as a physical therapist for people to the horses, and, how shocking it was to find out how sensitive they are despite their size. But you're also using a lot of terms and parallels with the canine world. So did
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you found that getting certified as a CCRT, a certified canine rehabilitation therapist, was valuable in this work as well.
It helps so much. Working with humans, you rely a lot on verbal feedback. With dogs, you start learning that, unless the owner's doing that you really have to pay attention to, again, body language, ears, tails. So that's kind of the same thing with the horse, same sort of feedback. Reading the nonverbals, super important and life-saving.
Yeah.
You with the horses, there's a bit more of an element of danger. With everything we do with working with the horses, we want to be mindful of their ability to kick or strike out. And obviously, as a volunteer, I'm not usually in those positions. The staff makes sure that we don't end up putting ourselves at danger. So, but you never know with the horse. As a trainer used to say that worked with us, I trust a horse as far as I can throw him. She said that so many times. It's in my brain.
you need to keep your wits about you when you're working with an animal of that size that is a prey animal, because
Right.
they are on alert and they're very heightened to what's happening around them.
Well, I was going to say, and I think it is just the size that makes them so dangerous. So, what I was thinking of, Cathy, is we interviewed the educator for the House Rabbit Society, and certainly bunnies are prey animals. They could kick too, but if a bunny is kicking, it's certainly not going to hurt you or potentially kill you, like if a horse kicked you in the head.
I'm
So
not
it's not
saying
like,
the chances of being killed by a bunny is zero, Chris,
yeah.
but it's pretty low.
But I think again, it's that fear and the response to fear, and so we don't want to cause them undue stress or anxiety. And even with our dog, that are predators, the fear aggression, right? When push comes to shove, and they have tried to talk to us and tell us, I don't like that, stay away, and we don't listen, we don't read their body language, then they're ultimately forced to maybe lash out physically because they've tried everything else prior to that, and so it results in aggression.
I think a lot of parallels can be drawn between rabbits and horses, even down to digestion. I think can be. I think they're very similar in a lot of ways.
I remember, I think her name was Doreen, and we talked about when you gain the trust of that prey animal. When they approach you, she really emphasized, like, you don't just go up and pick up a bunny, it terrifies them, that you sit on the floor, and when they approach you and they come toward you and allow you to pet them and they get in your lap, that is the ultimate reward for you as their caregiver, their pet parent, their owner, whatever you want to say. And I'm sure that's a lot of what you experience with Micah. Gaining that trust is huge.
It is. I have, when I'm holding or handling, we call it, for the farrier, I have a list of horses that I've frequently never met before. And one example was Pepe, who is a gorgeous paint horse, but I was walking up, approaching, I was doing everything by the book because I didn't know him. So I was going slowly. I would approach, he looked at me, I'd stop, he'd look away, I'd approach. I went slowly, I scratched his shoulder, I gently reached for the lead to put around his neck, and he bolted. But when he bolted, his left front smashed my right front, as I like to say. Oof. So it was the only injury I've ever had at the rescue, and it was just, bone bruise, essentially. But so you do kind of have to, you never want to feel like you're controlling, but you do need to be the leader in these situations also with the horses.
Can you talk a little bit about misconceptions about horse ownership?
I think that to me goes a little bit back to, does the horse, do you have to have a horse that can be ridden? Because I've learned so much. I am taking private lessons from one of the trainers that used to be at the rescue, and just, again, so much about being with them as a companion, and just being able to spend some time with the horse. The ownership, again, I think people get tracked into thinking they have to be ridden. And I do love riding a horse, don't get me wrong. So I get that. But I think there's so many other ways the horse can benefit one's life.
It makes me wonder, as a prey animal, I mean, obviously we needed horses, as Cathy alluded to early, to settle America and, travel and, use them for work and things like that. But do they like to be ridden? We're invading their space. We're on top of them. Can you speak to that at all?
I wonder that same question. Like, what makes that okay, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, honestly. I mean, I think we certainly get some horses through the rescue that clearly don't want to be ridden. And they're the smart ones. We had Poppy just the other day decided she didn't want to be ridden and dislodged the rider. So they have their ways of communicating again. So that's a great question. And I think just, there are obviously some spinal conditions that go on with horses that when a horse acts up, is it behavioral? Is it pain? I mean, again, just like a dog, right?
Yep.
You got to sort through all that. What's making them do this? Is it one of the horses was what I had to work with, who was a little bit stubborn and didn't really want to do anything. One of the trainers said, well, I think if he were a human, a male human, he'd be a stoner. So I don't think of horses being like that, but their personalities are really all over the map. So yeah, so they'll they let you know, I think, is the best way to put that. That's why the training process can take a while, because they always tell us with our companion connection horses, don't go into a session with any goal in mind, because you really just have to take with what you have, just like at a therapy session. You may have these goals that you want to get accomplished in canine rehab or PT in general, and that's just not going to happen that day. So you got to be flexible, take what you can get, sort of thing.
Yeah. And just, again, all those lessons that we can learn as a person. You talked about mucking the stalls being Zen-like, and I call things like that when I do yard work, it's an active meditation, because I'm just in that moment, and focused there and not thinking about the past or the future. And then again, slowing down, decreasing your own stress and anxiety, and, again, being in the moment and so forth. So yeah, I certainly hope that after listening to this episode, that some of our listeners consider, volunteering with horses. And again, if they're maybe don't have that much experience, it sounds like there is certainly a role for them, and they can learn, and it's beneficial to both the human and the animal.
Absolutely. I think even the rescue has volunteer roles that include admin things in the office if you're not horse savvy, or if you don't want to be. They have gardening committees that work on the grounds. So there's a main event that the rescue sponsors every September. That is our main MANE fundraiser.
Oh, funny.
Main event. We had it off-site for a couple years, and then during COVID again, I think we just didn't get a facility lined up in time, and we still wanted to have it. So we ended up having it at the rescue. And once we did that, it was clear that that was the best way to do it, because people could walk around the pens and see all the horses, and the trainers put on riding demos, and it was just a huge success. So that's what happens every September. And that's, they of course need lots of volunteers for that. So anything, just being interested in a rescue itself is, again, it's like a humane society, only bigger, like more hay, more grain, but same ideas.
Right. And of course, donations are always welcome at any, rescue, shelter, fostering situation. The donations can be monetary, but they can certainly be in the form of goods, right?
People have donated bridles and halters and saddles, all kinds of equipment that the rescue takes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yep.
How about advice for somebody who's considering adopting a horse from Colorado Horse Rescue?
So there's a great website, and for the coloradohorserescue.org, and they have all the pictures of available horses. There's a placement team that one would meet with to discern what your experience is, what kind of horse you want. They use the term pasture ornament, which I don't know. I don't really like that term, but that would be a horse that can't be or is too old to be ridden, or not trained enough to be ridden. So is that, part of our companion connection program. And a fit would be made. We require several visits at the rescue. And again, I think even the facility has to be examined to make sure that we think it's a good fit. And we also make sure that anyone that's adopting, they give us first right of refusal. Like, we would take back any horse that doesn't work for any reason. So we want to be the ones that we don't want to say our horse is on the Craigslist, right? Yeah. Right. So the rescue does a great job of placement, and there's 2 full-time staff members that is their job, to make sure the horses get placed. So I think visiting a rescue, just getting to know the placement people, and then just taking a tour with them, would give people a really good idea about, can I do this? Do I want to do this? I have to say, I have no idea what it costs to board a horse. But that would be a consideration as well.
Right. You're talking about this placement. When you were talking about the companion connection, I was wondering how they would best place a horse with another horse. How do they know they're going to get along?
Yeah, I don't think they do. That's a great question. In fact, right after the Micah story went on Facebook and Instagram, pretty much the same day, so it wasn't because of that, someone was looking at Goliath, which was a horse that came from a dude ranch, older, still kind of the reddish sorrel, big, a gentle giant, we called him, because he was pretty. the couple or the person looked at Micah and also looked at Goliath. I'm like, in my mind, anyone would choose Micah, but they ended up taking Goliath. So they, I think, thought that was a better fit for their horse. And then, some do get returned. There's no doubt about that. And we don't as volunteers always learn the why, but we will see horses that have been returned. We don't always know why they were returned, but I think, again, can still be some financial issues or that the horse didn't get along.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's a trial period as well. Any horse that doesn't fit, if you get one home and it doesn't fit with your other one, which is why you adopted the horse,
right?
We take them back.
Yeah.
We want them back.
Yeah. It's like full circle, being responsible as a rescue, for the whole commitment, I guess, for lack of a better word. And, I think you said that sometimes the people that are trying to place them will go and do an on-site visit. And I'm sure with meeting the horse that's there or horses that are there, they might get a sense of what horse at the rescue might be a good fit and can help guide, those potential adopters as well.
Yeah. The energy. Right.
Well, Jerri, this is, and Cathy, this is a fascinating story. So I have a friend who lives out here in the Boston area, and she loves horses. In fact, her sister has a ranch in Steamboat, Colorado.
Oh.
And they've done vacations like in Florida where they're on multi-day trips riding horses through Florida and so forth. And so their horsemanship skills are advanced. And one day, my friend Fran sent me a picture and I think even some video of this little colt that wandered up to her sister's ranch in Steamboat.
Oh,
like, it's feel like a kitten wandering up to your door or something. I mean, isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Yeah. And she kept it, and it turned out to be a wonderful horse. And she was like asking for names, and I forget the name it ended up with, but it was a fairly common name. I recommended Coeur, Coeur, which is heart in French, because it had a heart-shaped white spot right in the middle of its mouth.
Yeah, cute.
Thank you. So stranger things have happened, right? And I also, we were talking about the parallels with dogs and like positive reinforcement and using treats and so forth. And you said that you use the technique where you approach, and then when they look at you, you stop. One of the very valuable things that I learned, actually not that early in my time working with our dog friends, is something called treat retreat, which is essentially the same thing. So I'm going to just mention it here because it could be helpful for the listeners out there. So basically, like if a dog would come into the clinic and, they were timid and I could tell they were a little bit scared, I would toss a treat very close to them and then back away. And of course, not make eye contact or whatever. And then you continue to do that, but not tossing the treat right to them. Like, so you're gradually drawing them to you, but you always back away. So they're making the forward movement. And then eventually most of them would take a treat out of my hand. Like,
I like that.
In a few minutes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice.
So that whole body language thing, I mean, I think so many of our animals, wild or domestic, are really masters of body language, and we don't realize how much we are impacting them, and oftentimes doing exactly the opposite of what we should be doing to gain their trust.
Yeah, and their communication can be pretty direct. So,
right.
With horses.
We just need to listen.
Yeah.
So the horse rescue, we are in a drought. We have been for many years here in Colorado. The horse rescue has developed an app called the Horse Alert, and it is now live in Colorado and California, also a place where wildfires occur. It's like a ride share. So if there is a wildfire in your area, you have an app called Horse Alert, and you can say, I have 4 horses. I need to be evacuated from my barn. And someone will have a trailer that fits 4 horses or 2 and 2. And then you connect via this app to get horses evacuated safely. How cool is that?
That is awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Because there was a fire near Boulder not that long ago that impacted a lot of people that we mutually know. And Was there ever a scare for the rescue at that time?
Yeah, the horses did have to be evacuated to the Boulder County Fairgrounds, and they used the volunteer list. So they got them all out safely over to the fairgrounds. But I think that's what prompted this, is that we need a better system for this.
Yep. Live and learn.
Yeah. And also the kind of cool thing about the rescue, this is my last brag, probably.
Brag away.
Is that we use chiropractors, not PT so much. Of course, in Colorado, right, our license is to be an animal therapist. That's how it's termed in Colorado. But of course, my training was only with dogs until I did the equine massage. But we use a chiropractor who comes out, and she's like 5'2" and like 90 pounds. Does amazing work with the horses. She does some acupuncture needles as well, and they respond so well to that.
That is, again, amazing because, like you said, she's not a big person. They respond to the gentle coaxing of their bodies.
Yes. Yeah. And there's no manipulations going on. It's all
right. And that's really something that I learned in working with dogs and other small animals was I was starting to really break down, in terms of my own body, my hands and wrists. And specifically, we did a lot of manual therapy when we were, at University of Colorado on big people. And so with transitioning to pets, it is so much lighter work because they just receive it so much more readily. You don't have to go so deep and do so much. And I think that was definitely a lesson learned for me. What is the most surprising horse behavior that you've learned along the way?
To me, it cracks me up that these thoroughbreds and these really big draft cross horses that we get are so afraid of the minis. So we always have one or two minis around, and they're usually put up by the office for some reason. But we walk our horses past them and they all freak out. Like, what is that? That cracks me up. Also, the horse does a thing called the phlegm. Have you heard of this?
No.
Oh, I wish I'll send you a picture, Chris, because it's hilarious. The horse will raise up their upper lip and then they'll move their head around. I'm like, what are they doing? Well, it's to enhance. It's kind of about enhancing a smell. So they're doing it when they need to get a better smell of something. But that is a funny thing that horses will do.
Well, Jerri, as we are wrapping up, do you have any final message you'd like to share with the audience?
I think volunteer in general is an amazing thing. So when you retire, and I live in Boulder, so you can run and you can bike and you can hike and you can backpack and you can swim. And I do all those things, but it's kind of like, you know what, you can only do that for so many hours before you're like, is this really it? So finding a place to put your heart and your time and your energy, and I don't want to say talent because you don't really need talent, but just, again, energy is such an important thing. I'm happy that I found it with horses, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It sounds really, it sounds fulfilling, really, giving back like that to the horses. And where can people find the list of horses at the Colorado Rescue, or where they can volunteer? Where can they find that information?
Yeah, it's a great website. And Megan is our marketing person who does blogs frequently. She's posting on social media, both Instagram and Facebook, and maybe more. But it's chr.org is how you find the actual website, and it will list available horses. I think it lists the companion connection horses, and I think it says riding or non-riding on their bio. You get pictures on the website. You get pictures of them, and again, like Chris said, kind of their gender, their markings. And I think it usually has a couple of pictures. So it's a great website, and it's a great organization.
Great. We will encourage our listeners to go there, chr.org.
Yeah.
Yep, for Colorado Horse Rescue. So yes, as a final thought for me, I guess, you talked about in general how great volunteering is, and I agree with that 100%. And again, that you don't need a special skill in terms of horse handling, that there are, with any organization that relies, and they truly do rely on volunteers, they can find a fit for you. They're strapped, for employees and money and all of that. And so anything that you can do regarding donating your time is fantastic.
They will find a place for you.
Yes.
Whatever
yes.
you want to do or can
Exactly. Exactly. And just again, as a reminder, we will also post the link to Jerri's journey with Micah from feral to friend in our show notes. So be sure to check that out. It's a great article.
Thank you, women.
Thank you, Jerri. This was fascinating. I love to talk about horses.
Yeah, this was really great.
We'll do it again.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Fantastic, Jerri. Thank you so much.
All right. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, Petability fans. This is your host, Cathy Simons. Do you live with a blind or visually impaired dog? Don't let vision loss stand in the way of a full, joyful life. In my book, Blind Devotion, Enhancing the Lives of Blind and Visually Impaired Dogs, I share my expertise and passion to help pet owners like you navigate life with a blind dog. From adapting your home to building trust and confidence, this book is your go-to resource for ensuring your furry friend thrives. Your dog's vision may be limited, but their potential isn't. Empower your dog. Get Blind Devotion today at Amazon.com.